We will now shift forward. We've been discussing a certain form of investments in NFTs, which is a non-fungible thing, but from the perspective of the crypto world, we would need a discussion about what specifically cryptocurrencies are. The first thing we all think about is Bitcoin, because that's the oldest, or one of the oldest, and the most spread. So I'd like to welcome the next speaker, Dominik Stroukal, from payment institution Roger, and he will speak about the Bitcoin. Bitcoin just for boomers. This is the title, the provocative title of his lecture. So we will see whether investing in cryptocurrencies does depend on the date of birth. Thank you for the floor and for the invitation. I was really trying to figure out how to define it, but we had this beautiful session just before the conference. We spoke to all members or of the panelists, and one of them said that boomer is actually a state of mind, not well. There's a word in Czech which describes old people, and again, it can be just the state of mind of the particular person. So boomer are perhaps really the generation of Bitcoiners. These are the brave young people who handle Bitcoins and tokens and all that. They say that boomer and Bitcoin is, or boomer coin, is Bitcoin a boomer coin? This is a question which I'm not the inventor of. There are many people who speak about boomer coins and they prefer the doggy coin or other nonsensical thing. But yes, Bitcoin probably is for boomers. Well, you often tend to counter arguments of others, but it might be that they are right, and what seems to be an offense turns out to be a flattering name. That was the same for capitalism. I insist that Bitcoin does not make sense. It is slow, it is expensive, and it's not funny. But it's nice, and let it be that way. I will try to explain how it works. So Bitcoin has known several waves. A moment ago we spoke with Peter about the last huge wave, and I'm not saying that the past is predictive of the future. I am rather opposed to this idea. It might be that NFTs and other things which we were talking about will still exist in the future, but I'm quite skeptical. It may be, though. It doesn't change anything in my argument. What I want is to argue for what is grey between the white and the black. We speak about beautiful new things which are not for the boomers and which still work. It works, and it might be called conservative, although it does not really harmonize with a cryptocurrency. But even in the crypto world, there can be more and less conservative things. When we had, in the years 8 and 9, when Bitcoin started to exist, only the IT people started to be interested, but not many. Then later, in the years 11 to 12, it started developing, and it seemed to be the great instrument of avoiding the state institutions, the central banks, the international regulatory framework, which people tend to dislike. And it was used for all kinds of very wild things. And the moment when this interesting line of some of this strange alternative came, there was for the first time the idea that Bitcoin is for boomers. I remember these were, that's what was often said in the years 13 to 14, that Bitcoins are just for boomers. If you really want to be fun, then you couldn't do it Bitcoin, because earning 10 times or 20 times more, it's not fun. You need 100 times. People started using all kinds of acronyms, titcoins, buttcoins, shitcoins, whatever. And whatever you could think about would make a new coin. And I never bought any of these, but I also followed that and was interested and amused of that. So then some of them survived. 99% of them just dropped flat and disappeared. And you will see many of those coins of those coins which disappeared. But then there was the dog coin, and since it was beautiful, it just stayed. So people started to then there were the 90s in the era of Bitcoins, that is the years 15, 16, where ATMs were established, conferences were convened. And then as Bitcoin started to grow, again, people started to say, oh, it's just for boomers. They only earn 20 times, 20-fold. That's not. So blockchains were being sold for companies, blockchains for everything. I like delivering a 3 hours presentation on blockchains. Many things were told at that time which didn't make any sense, but people were convinced that the whole world will be blockchained soon. And many people believed it, and it looked very interesting. And although nobody speaks about that way, you won't find this headlines claiming that blockchains will solve the future. But still, the boomer coin existed because it sought for a simple, straightforward way, and it rather triggered quarrels and disputes and a lot of divergences. But still, Bitcoin survived. In the year 2020, it only earned tenfold. Again, they started saying it's just for boomers. We need more than tenfold. We need NFT, and DeFi is the future. I'm not saying it is not. Maybe it is. Perhaps if we were here together with Peter, we would start pulling our hair. He has more than me, so he would be the winner. Anyway, behind the headlines, the fact is that that Bitcoin, which exists now, is so very much changed, so very much transformed as opposed to what it used to be. But still, it is the Bitcoin which I bought some 10 or 12 years ago, and it still is there. We even have Boomer Coin. Everyone can do whatever he or she wants, so Boomer Coin is always there and is now there, and you seem to be on the verge of getting rich if you buy it, but it fell flat again. I have a problem, because if you look at this brave new world, and there is this Bitcoin, and if I speak to the people from high schools and I'm telling them something about Bitcoins, they get bored, and they want me to say something about things which their dads didn't used to use. It doesn't seem to be a long time ago, but when you're young and in this rapid new world, it is a long time. 12 years is a very long time. Facebook came into being in 2014, 2004, and now it's elsewhere. And why Bitcoin is not used on a general level just to pay anything? I think it has never really. It is used, but it's never been used as an ordinary currency. I'm not an economist, but why people use this as money and that they don't use as money? There is the Gresham's law, and it was rebaptized as Nakamoto-Gresham law. Actually, Nakamoto says denies what Gresham said. Gresham said if you have good coin, it will suppress the that is, the bad coins harm the good coins, because if you have the same value of two coins with different contents of precious metal, then people will keep the gold and they will spend rather the copper coins. But when you fix a price for something, then the artificially lowered prices are rather are the ones which stick. Well, people tend to use whatever is prone to losing its value, and they're prone to keeping whatever is likely to retain its value or earn even its value. So we will see, although I don't think that people will be paid their retirement pension in bitcoins. But bitcoins are a legal currency, and there is an obligation to accept them if you're paid with it. What can happen, though, that Bitcoin will only become an asset, investment asset, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have some very fine properties, qualities, which will be pleasant to use. Still, it is an artificial thing. And now we have the current situation. It's changing now, but people got so used to gambling and seeking for huge profits that they still expect it to be around. People just go for multiples. They don't care for 2% per year. They prefer to bet on this multiple earnings. People are gamblers. Many of them. People are driven to gambling when the performance is low. We've had this in the past years. It's now changing, whether it's for the good or for the bad, I don't know. So let me recap. I think that even though it is a boomer coin, it is good actually. It makes sense. It makes sense, but it does not mean that I will go and fetch all my money and turn it into bitcoins, living in a bitcoin economy. A couple of years ago, a guy came to me. He was a filmmaker, and he was telling me that he could travel around the world, eat and get distracted and drink and whatever, just using bitcoins. And then we had a couple of beers, and he came to me. I won't tell you whose name, who he was. And he told me, you know, Dominik, I'm hungry. I have a few bitcoins. Don't you have crowns? So you can't really rely on that. Anyway, we are not yet living in the world of bitcoins. It is a plan B if the real world failed. Just like for other things. I do understand the subjective value. It can be assigned to anything. It can have some value. It is fun for people. But I don't see what is the system in it and where is the plan B. I don't see it. Nobody convinced me about it. And as for the Bitcoin, I hope that we will never be driven in a situation where we would have to rely on it. The beautiful thing about it is that we live in a world where the plans A don't always stand firm. Your privacy, your identity are under attack everywhere. You just don't want anybody to see what you buy for your wife for her birthday. You want to retain your privacy, and I'm glad that there is a plan B for the preservation of privacy, and where the great bubble after the recession in 2008, all kinds of things were done. There are costs to all that, and there is inflation, but still there is the plan B, and since the world is revolving faster and faster, the plan is there, and I hope that I want more plans B to exist. It's good to have Bitcoin, but it's good also to have gold, silver, and other things, and we see it for many other things.
And it's not true that boomer coin is the dull and slow thing. You can have a number of things apart from gold, and the expensive and slow thing can prove itself to be useful. And you don't have to transfer within a Bitcoin network. It's still not so funny, and will never be as big fun as dogs. But the question is this not the right thing to be? Thank you for the short time you gave me. There is a contact to me, so I shall answer questions now, and those which will not be answered, I will do so in writing. Okay, we still have time. There were connotations to gold coins. Well, Bitcoin is for boomers because it's so old. Well, gold is not all that old. It was in the system, but as an alternative, when people wanted to get back to the gold standard. The present money is 50 years old. And the discussion that gold should not be in the money system, but as an alternative to the existing money, it exists for 50 years. The criticism of gold bags, well, although it was done by people who are still alive. Well, so it's an investment possibility. You want to have an opportunity. Yes, you buy gold as an investment, but for many years this wasn't possible. It only started. People were forbidden from owning gold. No. Gold is old. They had it in a church or all around them, but we couldn't see such a market that we see now. Or at least it wasn't for the broad public. There was some market in existence. Now, as it is an investment goods, that's really different. Most Christians ask what altcoins should be invested in, whether it's for everybody or only for boomers. Yes, I think it's individualized. Well, this is quite simple as a question. It can be subdivided into two parts. I had the student meeting me some years ago and asked me whether he could or should buy Bitcoin uranium, it was called. He said, "Sir, shall I buy it or not? Or should I buy it?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know the thing, but it seems to be nonsensical." He said, "Well, I don't care at all. the world is really as a casino. If I say it's nonsense, whatever you say, maybe I could even say that about things I don't know. If I say it's bullshit, it does not mean that maybe people will come back to me and say, you said it's nonsensical, now look at me, how wealthy I am. But it can be said. Well, I'm not saying whether something will grow up or not. That's what is of interest to an economist. I may have my crypto assets well deposited, and maybe my daughter or her children will find the cash within years from now. I would only put my money into a Bitcoin. Okay, and what about Ethereum? That one showed historically that it can keep as number 2. And it has more fans maybe than Bitcoin has. But to me it's something, well, one of my friends said, it's like you go with a big gun to shoot sparrows. Or if we have a problem, we invent something that it solves. I'm not saying that you will not find that sort of process, but it's rather reversed. What about Lightning Network? It's mentioned in several questions, asking, what is your view of the future, very generally speaking? Well, there are questions of scaling up. When they took the path of Lightning Network, I didn't expect it to catch on so quickly. It's not bad to try it. And there are other things that should be tested right now. Regulatory battle, which is now led. It happens that in European Parliament, for example, in terms of consolidating the law, somebody can send something from an anonymous address, and it must be found out to what destination it is sent. People maybe do not have a bad motivation, but it's difficult then to meet the requirements. And that probably will be served by the Act on Regulation of Crypto Assets. It can then be reversed, but it will take many years. So specifically in the Czech Republic, where we have so many companies that invent something interesting, something new, would be a bad thing to destroy them all. One question concerns saving products. Bitcoin is a saving product by itself. You don't have to invent nothing new. And you look at the Boomcoin, when Bitcoin made a tenfold profit in 2020 and was above 60,000 early last year. And people want more because they hear stories of people who were able to do the same overnight in 2011 or 2013. So they search for more ways of facilitating it. They can either fall to a crook, or they might be, now they must be very lucky. Okay, we are under time pressure. It's a pity. I only have one more comment. That the author of who says at the age of 19 he's a boomer. Okay, so we shall now move on